Oh, quarantine. It's July. Everyone needs masks. Why not make them fun and make them yourself? Here's how. The template that I found online to do the face masks has one big shape, and then when you fold it down, it has the shape for the inside mask because you end up having to cut 4 pieces of material to create them. So this piece that I'm holding up here is going to be for the inside of the mask. It's just a blue material that left over from cosplay. You can use an old t-shirt, you can use anything you have lying around. So I'm going to lay down the template over this material, and I have it folded over on the smaller part of the template with that little flap folded in. And then I'm just going to pin it to the fabric so that it's easy to cut out with my scissors. I'm just gonna speed through some of the pinning and the cutting because you get the idea. So once you're done cutting your material, just take out all the pins and then take both pieces of fabric and make sure that they're aligned along that curve, because that's where the mask is going to sit along your face, along the nose and the mouth. And along that edge, you're going to do a straight stitch on your sewing machine. Also, don't forget when you make your straight stitch on the fabric to reverse your sewing machine a bit so that it kind of makes a knot or a lock at the end of the thread, because when you wash the masks, you don't want them to fall apart. Now, once both pieces of fabric are sewn together, you're going to take a scissor and make little tiny marks about, I would say, 1/2 inch wide, so that when you eventually put the mask together, the material will curve nicely around your face. So here I'm ready to use my template again, and I'm going to use the widest part of the template to make the outside part of the mask. And I'm going to grab my fun Dr. Mario print that I got from Spoonflower, which is like a really great website to get some fun prints, not sponsored or anything. But yeah, I found this Dr. Mario fabric print that I loved. And make sure to orient, if you have a pattern, make sure to orient it in the correct direction, because I've made that mistake where I've messed up and put little monsters and pills upside down so it doesn't look so good. But yeah, you do the same thing. You cut it out using the bigger part of the template, and off you go. So here's my material cut out. Make sure that if you have a pattern, that you flip it inside out before you sew it, because that's another mistake I've made where the inside is the outside and it's just a mess. So make sure it's flipped inside out in the correct orientation, and then you do another straight stitch along the front of the mask. And you make the same cuts with your scissor so that when you wear the mask, the material will fold properly. Now you're going to take the 2 pieces that you have and make them kiss each other so that the patterns are facing each other and aligned. Or you can see where I'm aligning them with my fingers and just kind of flattening out the material. And then you sew the top and bottom along the edges, and that way they can be flipped inside out later on. So now you have your sewn mask, you just flip it inside out. And eventually I will take the mask to the iron and just iron down the shape so it's nice and flat and easier to sew for later on. So here I have an iron set up to high heat, and I'm going to iron the mask flat so that it's easier to sew the edges and also just sits comfortably on the face. See where I put the edges? I just kind of folded them in and then made a double fold and then ironed it flat so that when I sew the straight edge, it'll be easier to sew as well as thread the elastic through later on. Once you sew the straight edges of the side of the mask, you're ready to thread your elastic through. I just use an old skewer with a pointy end so I can hook it onto the elastic, thread it through, and then I found it difficult to actually sew the elastic together, so I just made a tiny knot. It's really strong, and then just snuck it into the material. And there you go, you have your finished mask. It's all set to wear.